Hey, how you doing? I'm Joe Dallas,
I'm Renee Dallas.
and we're talking to you today on our Christians in a Cancel Culture podcast, talking about issues that Bible-believing Christians are discussing with friends and relatives and co-workers. This whole podcast is set up to help people better explain and even defend a biblically based worldview on key social issues. Uh, I'm loving this. Honestly, honey. I mean, I just feel like we've extended our day. This is our morning routine. We're talking about news items, and we're going to both be
We
especially all
actually thought we
pontificate.
would name the podcast Coffee with Joe and Renee,
Yeah,
but that's a little bit.
a little hokey, a
Yeah,
little hokey.
yeah,
But I mean, this really is par for the course. Sitting around talking about what is on people's minds. Well, what's on people's mind today? This week,
yeah,
lots of Disney World employees, lots of Disney employees in general, are walking off the job. They're
yeah.
protesting. They're upset, and it's got the CEO of Disney very concerned about how his employees feel about him, the future of the company. They're upset because some legislation has been passed in Florida. It is very likely to be signed into law by Governor DeSantis. The White House press secretary Jen Psaki has chimed in on this, and she has said, I quote, "Why are Florida leaders deciding they need to discriminate against kids who are members of the LGBTQ community?" Not to be outdone, President Biden has tweeted out, quote, "I want every member of the LGBTQ community, especially the kids who will be impacted by this hateful bill, to know that you are loved and accepted just as you are. I have your back."
Hmm.
People are upset from the president on down. Now, the CEO of Disney, Bob Chapek, has spoken out against this bill we're about to discuss, but evidently the employees at Disney, especially those who are openly gay or lesbian, don't feel that he spoke soon enough or that he spoke passionately enough. And so they made an official statement saying, quote, "His statements have utterly failed to match the magnitude of the threat to LGBTQ safety represented by this legislation." And so, in response to that, he said, "Whoops, I'm sorry. Here's his apology. I truly believe we are infinitely better and stronger because of our LGBTQ community. I missed the mark in this case, but am an ally you can count on, and I will be an outspoken champion for the protections, visibility, and opportunity you deserve." What do we know so far? People are upset from the president on down. They're upset about legislation in Florida, legislation that is very likely to be signed into law. The CEO of Disney has said, "Hey, I am against this bill, but I'm sorry I didn't speak against it sooner. I'm sorry I didn't speak against it strongly enough. I'm an ally to you." And yet Disney workers are still walking off the job to make a statement. People are very angry about something here.
But what is this exactly all about? I mean, who is saying that you can't say gay? Is that the equivalent of the bill that was up in California? I think it was several, like 10, 15 years ago. It was the bill was nicknamed "Nice." Hey, Mister, nice dress. Okay, that was
I don't remember that
yeah,
one.
it was like
Oh
it
boy.
was a bill about transgender and cross
Oh,
dressing
I
in
got you.
at work. But this is the same thing. These bills get nicknamed. They're
Yeah.
not really. None of that language is even in the bill, as far as I understand.
Hmm.
What do you know about that?
Okay. Well, let's go to something axiomatic here.
Mhm.
Okay. If you don't like something, slap a label on it that makes it sound hateful.
Right,
Keep repeating that label, and you're going to create a real distaste for whatever it is that not only you don't like, but you want other people not to like as well.
right.
So basically, this bill is being called the "Don't Say Gay" bill. It's a
Don't
"Don't
say
Say Gay"
gay.
bill.
That's
Now,
the nickname.
now, any reasonable person would say, "Oh, that sounds like a bill is being promoted that tells you you can't say gay." Well, that's an astonishing accusation. How in the world are you going to get people not to say gay? You're going to pass a law against it? I mean, are people going to be ticketed? Is Siri going to tell on you? You said gay. Of course not.
And how ironic that they're saying that we're telling them that we're telling them we want them to regulate their speech. That's pretty ironic.
It's a position we don't find ourselves in too often.
That's
But
right.
let's talk about what the bill really is. Okay,
Right.
what is the legislation actually? Last week, the Florida legislature passed a bill that prohibits elementary schools in Florida
Mhm.
from from developing a curriculum about gay or transgender issues for kids from grades kindergarten through third grade. Now, let me repeat that and make it clear. What people are saying is the Don't Say Gay bill is actually a bill which tells the Florida elementary schools that you may not have a curriculum in which you officially teach kids about lesbian issues, gay issues, and transgender issues when they are in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, or third grade.
Can I just interrupt you for a second? Did they start saying earlier on when you introduced this, you said this is impacting kids in the LGBTQIA community. So are you saying that these
Mhm,
kids
mhm.
in a kindergarten through third grade are in the LGBTQ, or are they saying they're in the LGBTQIA community at that age? Because
Yeah,
I mean, by inference, they're saying these kids are gay.
yeah.
These young kids
And that
know,
they're
and they
part of the
know this.
community.
That's ridiculous. How in the world could that be?
Mhm. Well, I mean, okay, here I'll be the first to admit I've got to watch my sarcasm because even as I hear you ask that question, I will say something like, "Oh yeah, don't you know they're all marching in the
They
kiddie
actually,
parade?" I mean,
I guess they actually are in some cases because their parents let them. But by and large, kids are not in that community at
mhm.
that age.
Well, there's a few just serious misnomers about the whole thing. First of all, this bill is not saying that even in classrooms, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, nobody is saying you can't say gay. Nobody is saying that. Nobody is prohibiting a discussion of this, although I don't like the idea of kids in
Mhm.
kindergarten, first grade, second grade, or third grade even talking about this type of thing. I don't think it's age appropriate. I don't think it's necessary. However, that said, this bill still is not telling teachers or students of that age that they may not talk about this. What the bill is saying is it will not be a part of official classroom curriculum in our public school system. We will not be teaching our kids in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, or third grade about homosexuality and transgender. That is all it is saying.
Well, I mean, typically your sex ed conversations happen in fourth grade anyway. The
Mm-mm.
In the schools, I mean, when our kids had it, it's typically in fourth grade. It's deemed to be about the right age when you can start introducing these ideas,
Mhm.
age appropriate.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, honestly, I think this next idea, the question is that how important is it for primary school kids to know about gay and lesbian history? Is that
Mhm.
appropriate or is it important?
Okay, again, let's take a deep breath because
Mhm.
emotions run high when you start
Yep.
talking about this type of thing.
Yeah.
I can feel myself getting hyped up. This is idiotic. Why would you even be talking to kids about this? It's so dishonest and it's so destructive, blah, blah, blah. Big important part of your question is could we be damaging kids by not
Right.
teaching them about these subjects?
Is it
Could that
true?
harm them? Because nobody wants to harm kids. Nobody wants to harm kids. And yeah, is there such a thing as a gay child? I suppose there is such a thing as a kid who feels either gender confused or maybe identifies more with the opposite sex than his own or her own. That is a possibility. I find it difficult to believe a kid is genuinely feeling homosexual erotic attractions at that age, but I'll at least consider the possibility. But all that said, do kids need to be taught this stuff when they're of that age? No, of course not. They don't. And I think most reasonable parents would agree. Now, kids need to be taught about respect for all people. They need to be taught about tolerance for all people. They need to be taught about consideration for all people. They need to be taught that, as you go through life, you're going to meet people who are different from you in many ways. And you always treat them as a fellow human being worthy of all the same respect and dignity that you are worthy of. That absolutely kids need to be taught from day one. And they should
Mhm.
be taught that at home, and that should be reinforced in the schools.
Right.
But for kids that age to be learning as an official part of their curriculum about gay and lesbian history, about what it is to be transgender and so forth, I don't believe that for a minute.
And
No.
I don't think kids can really process that, especially that age. I don't know if they can really process the implications of learning about these things.
Hmm.
And I'm afraid that they will, excuse me, they'll label themselves, and other kids will label them as well. because that's going to be their conclusion. I mean, so you always see those really cute pictures where the little boy is running towards the other little boy, and they just like each other so much, and they're like little brothers, even though they're from different families, and they run up and they hug each other. So some kids can go, okay, then therefore you're gay. It doesn't,
Yeah.
there is nothing, it has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with childlike love. It has nothing to do with sex or homosexuality or same sex attraction. It's just childlike friendship. So I'm afraid that all of this would lead to the wrong conclusions because I don't think kids can process that in a mature way.
No, we're generally not talking about
No,
sex education with kids of that age anyway. Kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third
no,
grade. No, I mean, I
no.
think it's very hard for a kid of that age to even conceptualize experientially what erotic attraction is.
No, and the first time
You
you
know,
ever hear about it when you're a kid, you hear about how our baby's born and what does mom and dad do, and you're like, ew.
yeah.
It takes a long time to even get over that.
Mhm.
So I mean, I don't even think they would even be able to process that.
No, but I do think, and you mentioned something earlier that it could be very easily misunderstood. If we're starting to talk to kids about those issues, and we're trying to explain what is a gay person. Well, it's a man who feels attracted to or in love with another man, or a woman who feels in love with another woman. Gee, I love my friend. We hang out all the time. We have sleepovers. Oh, we're gay. I mean, I think you are introducing concepts to kids who are not ready to process them. And again, I see nothing in common sense that tells me that kids of that age even need to be
Which
taught that kind of
leads me to
material.
think that that's just the point.
Mhm.
Okay, I mean, acclimate the children early,
Yeah, well, do we want
right?
education or do we want indoctrination? I mean,
They
that's really
That's true.
that's really
Right. So what about the claims that kids will become prejudiced if we don't teach them about LGBTQ issues in school? What is that argument all about?
I want to answer that carefully because I'll tell you something, honey. I've said this to you before. I don't know if I've said it too many times on this podcast. I believe that there are things that are intuitive and there are things that are counterintuitive. I think that it is counterintuitive to think that or to accept the idea that somebody who was born male can become female. It's
Mhm.
counterintuitive. I think most
Right.
kids, if you teach them that, they'll go, "Huh?" If they say, "Now Johnny, I know Johnny is a boy, but actually, even though anatomically Johnny is a boy, Johnny says he's a girl, so he's a girl." I think something counterintuitive or something intuitive in the kid would even go, "Wait a minute, how is that possible?" And I think the same is true of homosexuality. I think there
Mhm.
is a natural sense of, wait a minute, men and women, it seems like the way they're built testifies to a particular design that homosexuality cannot fulfill, cannot realize. So yeah, I don't call that prejudice in that sense, but I think that if you look at it in the strictest sense, I suppose there is a normal prejudice towards
Right.
heterosexuality. I think that there is.
Right.
I don't think that is a prejudice against homosexual people. I think that it's sort of like the word discrimination. Discriminating means you choose. It means you have a basis on which you make choices. And I think in that sense you discriminate by saying, well, I think this is normal, I think this is not. I do think that unless kids become indoctrinated, their natural inclination will be to think, well, it doesn't seem right or normal to me that two men should try to mate or two women should try to mate. I think that they will also, if left alone, will generally have the idea that, well, I will grant that people have the right to decide for themselves that that's how they want to relate, but I'm not going to accept the idea myself that that is normal or good. Does that mean they're going to become prejudiced? No. Now, I hear the U.S. Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, would disagree with me. What he has said in response to this bill, and I quote, "The Department of Education has made it clear that all schools receiving federal funding must follow civil rights law, including Title IX's protections against discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity."
Mhm.
We pause. Who's talking about discrimination? We're talking about whether or not kids should be taught about this in first, second, or third grade or kindergarten. We're
Right.
not even talking about discriminating against anybody. We're just saying, is this information that they should be given? He further says, "We stand with our LGBTQ students in Florida and across the country and urge Florida leaders to make sure all their students are protected and supported. Now, you understand what's being said here. If you don't support, if you don't promote the idea of children of that age being taught about homosexuality and transgender, you are not in favor of those kids being protected and supported. Look at the double bind
Right.
that puts a parent in. You are actually being told by no less than the US Secretary of Education that if you don't support that kind of curriculum in your school, you don't support the idea of protecting kids and making them feel safe. Now, honey, it is, I think we'd all
Mhm.
agree, it's
Mhm.
important that kids learn respect and tolerance for all people, but it's wrong for kids to be taught an affirmation of all behaviors. Big difference.
For sure.
You
Yeah.
you do teach respect and tolerance for all people. You don't teach in the school system an affirmation for all behaviors. That's what parents are for. That's what the local synagogue or the local temple or the local church is for. That's what the family is for. We don't send our kids to public school to be taught what their worldview should be. Your
Mhm.
worldview informs your morality. Therefore, we're not sending kids to public school to be taught what their moral standards should be when it comes to sexuality and romance and marriage and family. That is what we teach at home. If parents choose to teach their kids a gay affirming position, that is the parent's prerogative. I would not agree with it, but that is the parent's prerogative. But it's
Right.
not the prerogative of the school to override the millions of parents who would say, no, I don't want my kids taught that. And believe me, okay, here I am. I'm an old Bible thumper. I'm a conservative, Bible believing Protestant Christian. But honey, I mean, the millions of American citizens who are Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, Orthodox Hebrew, Islamic, Roman Catholic, or evangelical Christian. We are
Mhm.
talking millions and millions and millions. Of those groups, the vast majority of them do not believe that homosexuality is God's intention or God's will, do believe that homosexual behavior is a sin, and would not want their kids to be taught otherwise.
Now,
That's the problem. This is overriding the wishes, the desires of millions of parents to raise their kids as they see fit.
well, I think honestly, I think that is the point. It's override the parents' influence,
Yeah.
and the idea to is to teach kids as early as possible so that it becomes part of their belief system. And perhaps they're thinking that way when they get older, it's already integrated into their thought process about morality and all that. And so they won't mistreat others or they won't think of themselves as abnormal. I think that's
Hmm.
part of the problem that kids have is when they find themselves attracted to the same sex. They start really, they internalize it. They don't talk to anybody, but they think there's something wrong with me. And, I mean, I think that they're trying to solve the problem of that by doing this, by indoctrinating all the kids early on. The problem is it's not going to solve the problem.
Hmm.
It's overriding the parents. I think the larger issue is just what you said: learning respect and tolerance for all people. And I think um, you can't deny the fact that kids who have had homosexual feelings in school have been mistreated by other kids.
No, you
So
can't.
I think they're trying to head it off at the pass, and at the same time, I think just have the kids feel that this is normal. So
Hmm.
it is also an attempt to override your natural instincts.
Well, I mean,
You
let's
know,
just look at this and see if it would apply to any other issue. Should kids who are Roman Catholic be bullied in the schools? No.
no,
Should the schools teach Roman Catholicism, public schools? No.
no.
Should kids who are Protestant evangelical Christians like us, should they be bullied or harassed in the school? No, they should not. Should the schools be teaching
Hmm.
Protestant evangelicalism in the public school system? No. Ditto for the Mormon faith, Faith of Jehovah's Witnesses, Islamic. In
Hmm.
all of these cases, we would say kids should never be bullied because of their religious beliefs. But should the schools be teaching religious beliefs? No. Why? Because that is what should be taught in the home, not in the school. The same with the gay and lesbian issue. I mean, you're
Right.
talking about wanting to head this off at the pass. If you talk about heading something off at the pass, what you mean is head off at the pass the kind of prejudice that would cause a kid to bully a gay or lesbian kid. Okay,
Right.
absolutely. I'm behind that completely. That means you teach kids from day one, kindergarten, that you don't bully anybody, you don't harass anybody. If you disagree with someone, you have the right to disagree with them. You have the right to disapprove of them, even, but
Mhm.
you have no right to make their life harder just because you hold a different viewpoint. If we are
Right.
teaching our kids that, you know what? Kids aren't going to get bullied no matter who they are. That's the point.
Well, I think that's it. Teaching respect and tolerance for all people, and that we're all human beings,
Hmm.
no matter how we disagree, and no matter how we feel, matter what our religion is. That's the way to do it. But I think again, part of this has to do with what's age appropriate, what is indoctrination, and what is better left to the purview of the parents. Right. So, what do you think that the pro LGBTQ curriculum would have? What effect do you think it would have had on you as a child if you were,
Oh, good question.
as a child, listening
Good
to
question.
this type of uh,
Okay.
curriculum?
Talk to just about any adult male who has either identified as gay or does identify as gay. And one thing you'll hear if you say, well, when did you realize that about yourself? You'll usually hear, well, I don't know, but I'll tell you this from early in life, I felt I was different.
Okay.
Okay. I felt I was different. Um, I didn't think I didn't know what a homosexual was. We didn't use the word gay back then. I was a kid in the early 60s, but uh, what effect would it have had on me as a kid who already felt different, who already felt like I was not one of the guys, something was wrong with me? It would have reinforced that sense of differentness. I mean, I see no benefit I would have gotten from a bill like that. What I'm not going to do is sit here and say, I know that any kid in school who has any kind of gender confusion is going to be hurt by these kinds of pro gay curriculum. I don't necessarily believe that.
Right.
How
We
would
don't
I
know.
know? But I will say, at least speaking for myself, the last thing I needed was something officially declaring what I already feared. Oh, I'm different. There's a label for me. There's a category for me. Okay, well, that just increases my sense of either I'm worse than other people or maybe I'm special in ways that other people are not, rather than
Hmm.
just I'm a kid. I'm one of these people, you know.
Right.
Last thing we need to do is be segregating kids according to their sexuality or their gender identity from that early in life before they're even fully aware of what such things are. So I see no benefit that I would have gotten out of that. Now, look, honey, you and I think all of our listeners, all of our viewers would say the same thing on this point. We want the kids in our schools to be safe.
For sure.
We want them safe from any fear of bullying, intimidation, name calling, emotional damage, or physical damage coming from anybody. We want our kids safe. Now, what I so object to is that curriculum that is pro gay does not tend to just teach you should be kind and respectful if you know a fellow gay student. It doesn't teach that. It teaches you should believe that homosexuality is normal. If you do not believe that it is normal, there is something wrong with you. That is the problem. You see,
And
it's not just teaching respect for other people, it's
no.
teaching that this is what you should believe about an issue, which is ultimately based on your worldview and your moral structure. And that's going to vary from family to family. That's my problem
Right.
with all
And
of this.
people, I mean, the idea is that people, families, parents have the right to their own self determination.
Mhm.
In fact, I mean, when God created Adam and Eve and he made Adam and Eve in his image, he gave them the right to self determination. They made their
True.
choices. They made choices. And all of us, I think that's really kind of what our country's all about. At least it is at this point. You have the right to determine it, be self determinate, make your own choices about the way your life is going to go. You
Hmm.
have the right to discover who you are and what your giftings are, but you have the obligation to treat everyone with respect and consideration as a fellow human being, and not to harm them, not to hurt them. The weird, ironic thing about all of this to me is that um, when you say your belief system says that something's wrong with me, or if you don't agree with me, there's something wrong with you. So in the effort to be anti-discriminatory, you are discriminatory.
Oh,
Okay, so
very.
it really doesn't work. The only answer is to say everybody has the right to self-determination for themselves, and not to indoctrinate people so that they will confirm your bias because you've got a problem and you're not totally convinced it's right in the first place. So it doesn't, to me, it doesn't really solve the problem. I think it just exacerbates the problem. And you're right. I think it just sets up more divisions than is necessary.
Well, I think that here's the bottom line. It is disingenuous. It is
Hmm.
dishonest to call this bill, which will probably be signed into law by Florida's governor. I think it's very dishonest to say that it's a don't say gay piece of legislation.
Right.
It is no such thing. It is a piece of legislation which says don't tell our kids they have to believe that gay is okay. It is that. And I think that's right. I would be just as against, and believe me, I would be, any bill that was going to propose that in the public school system from ages K through 3, or for that matter, ages K through 12, that the public schools should be saying gay is not okay. Gay is a sin according to the book of Leviticus, and therefore people should not be gay. No, I would be against that too.
Hmm.
I'm against the public school system stepping in where the public school system is not qualified to step in.
For sure they're
Those are
not.
moral decisions based on worldview, which the public school system has no business meddling with. And for that reason, I think it is, again, disingenuous, dishonest to call this a don't say gay bill. My hat's off to the legislature in Florida and to the governor for signing this bill into law, which I believe he's going to do. I believe we should be supportive of that, but we
Hmm.
should be supportive with humility and with gentleness.
Right.
I mean, I think we can all hold to a position which is biblical and right and true, and that's good. But let's beware of having a Pharisaical attitude by which we are basically saying, so here we are, the good people coming against the bad people. That's not the case at
Right,
all.
because we
Not
care
at all.
about all people. I mean, as Christians, we're told that love is the primary virtue.
Mm-hmm.
And if God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten
Bingo.
son, that all who believe in him would be saved, that he intends that love towards every human being, no matter what direction they're going in, no matter what they believe. And as Christians, we believe we have standards and that he set out those standards for our good. But we don't look down our nose at anybody because all of us fall short, every single one of us. So yeah, we love each and every person, and we strive to love each and every person the way God would love them.
Boom. Couldn't have
Right.
said it better. The church is here to be a prophetic voice,
Hmm.
a voice of discipleship to the people within the church, a voice of reason and love, and yes, a prophetic voice to the culture, um, and always with the heart of a servant.
Exactly.
Well, it is such a pleasure talking with you every week on this podcast, Christians in a Cancel Culture. If you haven't yet subscribed to us, won't you do so? Just take a minute to hit that bell. Let us know that you subscribed. Put in the comment section that you have subscribed so that we can thank you personally for that. If you've not yet picked up a copy of my book, which this podcast is based on, Christians in a Cancel Culture, you can get that over Amazon.com. This is written to equip the average believer on how to discuss these issues: abortion, transgender, homosexuality, critical race theory, progressive Christianity, how to discuss them reasonably, intelligently, and above all, biblically. If you would like to partner with us in this ministry, won't you just go to our website, joedallas.com/giving, joedallas.com/giving. And we'd love having you partner with us in this work so we can go on providing free content. Well, we'll see you next week. Meanwhile, let's keep in mind the very thing Renee was talking about earlier. That's our job description as believers. It's the advice Paul gave to Timothy: the servant of the Lord must not strive, but be gentle to all, patient, apt to teach, in meekness, instructing those who oppose themselves, if perhaps God will grant them repentance according to the acknowledging of the truth. Okay, let's always remember, when it comes to the truth, it's not just where we stand, it's also how we stand.
Hmm.
Good being with you. God bless.
God bless.